Welcome everyone to the Modern Day Overthinker podcast. My name is Collin. I'm your host. Today I have Chrissy Hodges with me today. She's out in Colorado where it may or may not be snowing. You guys have weird weather out there.
It'll be snowing tomorrow.
It'll be snowing tomorrow, then it'll be 70 the next day.
I mean, it
And
was 65 today and it's going to snow tomorrow.
that's wild. I thought Midwest weather was weird, but I appreciate you taking the time. I know you have a busy schedule. So from what I have been able to learn about you, you are a certified peer and family support specialist and author of Pure OCD, The Invisible Side of Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, which is a memoir. It's like your OCD story, correct?
It is my OCD story in print.
In print. Okay, so let's take us back to where things started within the OCD world for you to where you got to now. Kind of maybe like the Cliff Notes version of that.
Like, you mean like when OCD started or advocacy?
I would say when OCD started because
Yeah.
I don't get that many people on here that also have OCD, um, and have pure OCD. So I want to get a little bit of the story. Obviously, I want people to buy your book if they want to, so don't tell the whole thing. But just the main points, just of how
Yeah.
we got here and how you got into advocacy
Okay.
from being a patient.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely look at recovery as many, many, many different stages that
Yes.
it never stops. I mean, it stops if you stop working on it.
Yeah.
But onset of OCD for me was at age 8. Even though I can remember before then
Mm.
having compulsive behaviors, more physical compulsive behaviors, but it really started for me when I was in third grade and I had a kid in the class throw up, and I had a very massive reaction of anxiety to that, and had my first panic attack. And it was so big. It was such a break in reality for me that in trying to make sense of it when I was 8, um, my teacher took me to the back of the classroom because I had jumped out of my seat and I was
Mm.
in on the floor panicking. And then when I finally came to, when she took me to the back asking me if I'm okay, and of course I thought you need to be composed and don't let anybody know what's going on, because I didn't know what was going on. And the
Mm.
only thing I could think is in my worldview at that point at age 8 was that I had done something to offend God. I felt like what was happening to
Uh,
me was bad, and that the feelings were bad. And at that point, I just believed that when bad things happen, I must have done something to deserve it, which is, coming from some core fear stuff as well. And
Scrupulosity.
yeah. And so I then started to mentally review anything and everything I had done wrong, trying to figure out if I was being punished and what I could repent for. I grew up in the South. My dad is a Southern minister, so religion was really all I knew at that point.
Mm.
But that's when religion became really toxic for me. It it very much like turned inside out of now
Yeah.
we're looking at something that's punishing versus something that can be full of hope,
Mhm.
and support. And so I also have pretty massive childhood trauma and neglect. And so at that point, I knew I could not tell my parents what had happened. I just knew at 8 years old the consequences of what would happen if I did. So I then took it upon myself to say, no matter what happens, no one will ever know. And so I formulated this entirely different secret world
Mm.
where I was doing compulsions all the time in my head. I was doing prayer compulsions at night. But to the outside world, I was just an everyday regular kid,
So all
even
mental
though,
compulsions.
yes,
Okay.
correct. I mean, avoidance obviously isn't
Yeah.
mental, but
True.
nobody knew. I
Yeah.
mean, and um, but simultaneously, I also started acting out in school,
Mm.
getting in trouble. And this was all a result of OCD. And but I could not tell anybody. And so I was basically labeled the bad kid, which did not help what already was going on. But I would do these compulsions. Like to me, I would come into a classroom and look and see, oh, does everybody look well? Is anyone going to get sick? And if they look sick,
No,
I would
it's
go
your
and
fault.
yeah, I would go and be like, okay, if I could get them to laugh, that means they're not going to throw up. So I became the class clown.
Mm,
It's so silly and stupid, but like it was calculated in my mind, which meant I was now a disruptor, or like someone at one point I felt like looked sick and I didn't know what to do, so I started cussing to get their attention, to get some sort of reaction from them, and then my teacher heard me, so I got in trouble for cussing.
yeah.
So it's like these weird behaviors that I would do to get reassurance, are now impacting me. And I couldn't tell anyone the truth of what was going on. And so I would say that at that point, day in and day out, my life revolved around compulsions while trying to live this life on the outside that everything was fine and normal. And then when I was a teenager, I started to have intrusive thoughts about demon possession, and I had intrusive thoughts about harming kids and bestiality and incest intrusive thoughts. And then these were a bit fleeting. It's almost like if OCD thoughts could just hover over you, and every once in a while the cloud dips down. It's like in Super Mario Brothers with like that
Yeah.
little thing that drops the things on you.
Yeah.
Um, um, they would just touch me and go. It wasn't until I was 14 and I developed sexual orientation OCD.
Mm,
I solely attribute to the fact that we were told growing up sex is wrong and
yeah.
sex is bad. And I was a natural sexual kid at 14, boy crazy, everything else. And then but I was being told all the time, this is wrong, you are bad, which of course is then reacting with my religious
Yeah.
scrupulosity. So then I would act on my natural instincts to make out with boys and stuff like that. And then I would
Yeah.
feel punished. And then I thought the sexual orientation thoughts were a new punishment.
Mm,
Now, when I developed sexual orientation, it was literally in like 2 seconds. It went from everything being normal, not normal, but you know what I mean, to are you gay? And when that happened, and this was back in the 90s, so in the South, so everybody thought that being gay was wrong.
yeah.
And I remember thinking, especially from a religious standpoint, they did. And I remember thinking, like, I do not care if I'm gay. Like I remember that night going, I don't care. I'll move to San Francisco. Because back then,
Yeah.
the only place that everybody knew where all
Yeah.
the people were was San Francisco. And I thought to myself, I'll just move to San Francisco. When I was 14, I was like, I'll move there.
Yeah.
But I just knew. And there was something about it that felt like it was stealing my identity. And that's what people don't understand about sexual orientation OCD. It gets very twisted
Mm,
into homophobia and everything else. And that is not what it's about. It is everything that I knew about my natural instincts and desires was stripped away from me.
mm,
And there was not only the fear and not only the panic of having a physical reaction to whatever was going on, but I also was like, oh my God, God is punishing me in a different way now. But also, who am I moving forward? And I have no one to talk to. I have no one. Because if I do say this out loud, everybody's going to think I'm gay when I'm not. And I don't want to come out of a closet that I'm not living in.
yeah.
And so it was so sinister. I mean, it
It's
was so
punishing.
confusing and so lonely. And I went to bed that night. I did like 8,000 prayer rituals and I went to
Mm,
bed. I was at a friend's house that night. And I remember waking up the next morning. I mean, I remember this vividly. It's like actual trauma. And
mm,
I I woke up the next morning and I remember opening my eyes. Decline that. I remember opening my eyes and the sun was shining through. I mean, I remember everything. And like waking up, and then it was like I remembered what had happened. And it was like the sun went away and the room turned dark. And I thought, oh my God, this is real and my life is over. And the doom that I felt on that morning was so extreme. I just thought there's no way out of this but suicide. I mean,
mm,
and I certainly didn't know anything about suicide at age 14, but I did know like you can't live like this. You can't live this life that isn't who you are and alone. And so
Hmm.
it that was the worst. That break in, with the theme, like this break in reality of the theme, and we talk about this a lot in my groups and in peer sports. It is like the lowest that people get.
Yeah.
Just coping with this, oh my God, there's nothing I can do. This is here to stay.
Hmm.
I can't live like this. And I just try to tell people, especially if they contact me in that phase, it's like you've got to put one foot in front of the other because this dark time will pass. It will.
It will.
But when you're doing it alone and you don't know what's going
Ugh.
on, it's just utter fucking hell. I don't know if you
Yeah.
say the F word,
I
but
don't
like
care if you. I don't care.
it is the darkest spot that people can be in. And it's, my whole, like when I wake up at 3 a.m. and I'm panicking just about life in general, that's what I think about are all the people that are out there in that time period and they're too scared to type in the computer, am I a pedophile? Do I want to have sex with my parents? Do I, they're
Yeah.
too scared to type it in, but they're trudging through life,
They don't want that on their
contemplating
search. They
death.
don't want that on their search history. They're
Yes.
so scared. Yeah.
And that's when I want them to find me the most because
Hmm.
I can easily just be like, oh, yeah, by the way, I met with 5 people today with POCD,
Yeah.
10 people last week with incest OCD. We're all good. But anyway, so I'll speed this up.
Go ahead.
So I lived with this for the next 6 years,
Hmm.
no one knowing.
Was there no? Was there an attempt at 14, or was this
No, it just was
okay?
this, it
I
was that,
thought.
it was that dark point of like, I can't live, like, and my brain immediately went to suicide. And that was scary too.
Yeah.
But I do remember I would go through these waves, and I'm sure people relate to this. Like,
Yep.
it would be okay for a while, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, it's gone. I must have done everything right. I prayed the right way, whatever."
Hmm.
And then it would come back, and I would be trapped, you know. And I would count the days, and I was last time this happened, it was only 14 days. If it goes past 14 days, I'm in trouble, And then it would break, and I'd be like, "Oh my God, okay, we're okay," you know. And so I all the while having to put this facade out to the world. I'm this perfect student. I'm this perfect athlete. I'm this perfect, I'm popular among my peers. I'm a great, straight A student, whatever. And like I cannot imagine how I did this.
The
Now,
mask.
48, I cannot imagine it. And
Yeah.
so I held all this entire experience up for 12 years with no one knowing. And then but I did make a pact with myself when I was 15. When it got really bad, I did tell myself, if it ever gets to the point where you're going to say it out loud, you are going to kill yourself because you're not going to say. And a lot of it also had to do with the religious scrupulosity. What would my dad think if I told him God was punishing his daughter and he's a minister?
Mm, yeah.
So it was borderline delusional, I would say. I mean, really, it would get delusional at times. Um, but I still had my insight intact enough to where I was, it was okay. But anyway, when I was 20, I was in college, like perfect everything. Like I had a full ride to college. I was a college athlete. I was in a sorority, like perfection on the
Yeah.
outside world,
Everything looked great.
dying inside. And my cousin died and
Mm.
it was sudden and he was one of my best friends. And so the grief on top of whole like with of this OCD that I still didn't know it was OCD. We were still in the
You didn't even
90s.
know what it was. Yeah.
There was no internet, there was AOL dial-up, and I was not going to the computer lab being like, can you turn gay overnight? And
Yeah.
can God punish you in that way?
Yeah.
And so I spiraled down in a dark depression and it was months. And my grades, all the signs were there. My grades dropped that semester. Like my cross country career, like that was horrible. My coach was even worried. Like I stopped. My hygiene was
Yeah.
awful. I wouldn't go out. All my sorority sisters, I lived in the house. They were like, are you okay? And I'd be like, oh, I'm just tired. Of course they would leave and I would
Yeah.
just
The
spiral
tired excuse.
rumination. Like, and I just kept saying, like, this will break, but this is the longest it had ever been. And all I thought about was suicide. And I just kept thinking, like, is this the time? And then I would get terrified. And then it was over Christmas break. And this was a quarter system back then. So we had like 8 weeks over Christmas break. And I was terrified. I was like, I'm not going to make it. So
Hmm.
I went home, of course, back to the room that was in high school that reminded me that this has been going on for years. It's never going to stop. And the moment I like made this deal with God, because we bargained, with OCD, I was
Yeah.
like, give me a sign in 24 hours, magical thinking,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
go home, I sit down, and my mom makes me dinner. I'm so depressed. And I'm trying to, and she makes dinner and she's like, let's watch 2020. And so we turn on 2020 and the headline comes on. It was like lesbians in their 50s, women who left their husbands after 25 years because they were gay.
Oh boy.
And I was like, it was that moment. If you have OCD, you know what I'm talking about. The room pans out and you feel like, I mean, it's dissociation, but you feel like you can see it. It's like myopic, right? Like you can just see it through like that. And I just thought, oh my God, there's the sign. And to me, at that point in my life, I was religious. I thought I'm now abandoned by God
Yeah.
because he's telling me I have to kill myself. Because that was the bargain, right?
Mm,
Give me a sign that you want me to die.
mm.
And so I
Oh, it
knew,
wasn't the other way around. It was okay.
yeah, that was the bargain. Give me the sign if you want me to live or die.
Hmm.
And to me, in my delusional brain,
That's
and
a sign.
I do remember like excusing myself and going to the bathroom and staring in the mirror. And it was like I couldn't recognize myself. Like I was staring into my eyes. I was like, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
Like I know this isn't real, but it feels so real.
So real.
I
Yeah.
can't escape. And so I won't go into detail. You can read it in my book. It's very gruesome. But over the next, I guess it was like 4 days later, I attempted suicide and pretty brutally. And I was very lucky to survive. And I was taken to the hospital. I had to have surgery, and then I was put under 72-hour hold, and then they admitted me. And I was just pissed. Like,
Oh yeah.
now I'm like, I told everybody what my thoughts were. I thought if I said them out loud, they'd go away, and they
Yeah.
didn't. Then I was just pissed that I was still alive and the thoughts were still there. And then I was lucky. This is 1997. I was lucky. And like the hospitalization was just a shit show. Like being in a locked facility was horrible. But I was diagnosed with OCD.
They actually
It
diagnosed you. Good.
They did. He came into my room at 8 p.m. I was like, oh my God, this is the time I'm going to get raped. I literally was like, this is like the movies. He's coming in here, closing the door. He's going to rape me. Like that. Like it was hard. Everything was horrible.
Yeah.
But he came in and he was like, I have something to tell you. And I'm like, what? And he was like, I think you have OCD. And he like drew this diagram and he was like, normal thoughts do this and your thoughts do this. And I had this moment of relief.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God. Like the first thing I thought is, it's not my fault. And then the second thing I felt was just sheer anger, just like pure and adulterate anger
Hmm.
that I had been dealing with a diagnosis for this long and everything I knew about myself was a lie. Um,
Hmm.
but I covered that up and got on medication. It worked great. I went straight back to school. I mean, literally, like, got out of the hospital, got a bunch of staples removed from surgery I had to have, and we were like, okay, go back to school. Everything's fine. Prozac's awesome. Yeah, that's my family life. And then I relapsed a year.
Prozac is pretty awesome.
Yeah,
But
it was. But I got off of it because I didn't like the sexual side effects. That certainly doesn't help sexual orientation OCD. And
yeah, that's a good
I got
point.
off, relapsed, and then I was lucky to find Dr. Stephen Phillipson online, AOL dial-up,
Hmm.
and that was the first time I heard of Pure O. He had a whole website on it. He's the one that coined the term. And there were these graduate stories of like, sexual orientation OCD and harm OCD and relationship OCD and, pedophilia theme. And I was just like, oh my God, like these are my people. And so
Yeah.
I got therapy with him. He did it across state lines on the phone. So I did ERP on the phone. And I was scared, but I was lucky. We didn't have Google then. So I couldn't like go and Google stories about ERP.
Yeah.
I went blind. I was desperate. And he was
Yeah.
just like, you want to get better? You do what I say. And it completely eradicated the HOCD theme. However, I adopted the mentality that a lot of people adopt, which is I'm better now and I'm cured and I'll
Mm,
never have OCD again. And then I need to just go enjoy life. And you
yeah.
cannot enjoy life when you've had a traumatic experience that you've not processed, including a suicide attempt and hospitalization, not to
Yeah.
mention 12 years stolen from me
Yeah.
from OCD. And so I struggled all through my 20s with just not understanding acceptance. I was trying to live a life being the same person that I was, not understanding that you are significantly different after OCD. And I developed addiction to alcohol. I probably could have met criteria for a personality disorder. I mean, I was just a mess. And then in my 30s, I moved to Denver from Steamboat. I lived in Steamboat Springs for 11 years, and I owned a clothing store, moved it down to Denver, and had a significant relapse with harm, OCD.
Mm,
And I didn't know I was relapsing because, again, I just thought I don't have OCD anymore and
yeah.
it
You're
feels so
cured.
real.
Yeah.
But then when my roommate was like, "Why do you keep asking me if you've killed someone?" Like, she was like, "You've asked me 10 times in 10 minutes." And I was like,
Reassurance.
"Oh
Lovely. Yeah.
no." So that's when I really decided, I got back on meds and then did ERP again. And then that's when I really thought, I can't do this by myself. Like I have got to find these people out there that have OCD. I cannot live this life anymore lying to everybody about who I really am. I didn't even know who I was. You really don't know who you are with or,
With or
before and
without.
after
Yeah.
treatment. And
Yeah.
so I decided to do advocacy. I was 30, I guess I was like 34 at that point. And so I learned how to public speak. I started speaking all around Denver about OCD. I started a blog, I started a podcast, and then I started speaking at the IOCDF conference, and then I started doing YouTube videos. And that's when shit really took off, when I started doing YouTube
That's
videos.
how I found you was YouTube. Yeah.
Most people do.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I
And
was because I was researching at the
I
time.
know.
Yeah.
I know. And so in 2016 or 2017, I can't remember what year it was, that's when I really started doing videos that were like more oriented toward taboo, intrusive thoughts.
Yeah. When I saw the first video of you, I was like, she's not holding back at all. And I'm like, this is great. This is what I need
I
to see.
don't hold back.
That's good. Yeah,
No.
we need that because there's so many. So my one question, not to stop the story, but
No, it's okay.
um, can you describe pure OCD to someone who has no idea what it is?
Yes. So pure OCD is the community name for individuals that have intrusive thoughts and mental rituals. So it's not an actual DSM diagnosis.
No.
But it's important to have a distinction. And the reason why is because people who live, and I'll explain what pure OCD in a minute, but this is important.
Hmm.
People who live with intrusive thoughts and mental rituals do not have the luxury, not that OCD is a luxury with physical compulsions,
No.
but of being able to see their compulsions in real time. So that adds to the fear that they really don't have OCD. When I'm doing physical compulsions, when I'm worried about vomiting, so washing my hands,
Yeah.
washing things down, checking, things like that, I know it's
That's
OCD.
physical. Yeah.
When I'm worried about whether or not I want to give my dad a blowjob, and I can't get those visuals out of my mind, and I'm scared about it, and my groin's firing and everything else, I can't see that I am ruminating 24/7 and mentally reviewing and avoiding, and everything else. And so I have the added fear of this is not OCD. I am just a monster.
Yep.
And so the importance of having a community of people who identify with this is assurance that we aren't alone and assurance that this is a real thing that other people feel. Because when you are experiencing this by yourself, feeling like you're aroused when you're looking at your dog's butthole or whatever else,
Something. Yeah. Yeah.
like, you seriously go, this cannot be a disorder. There's no possible way. So it's important to have that distinction and that community piece, so you can know in your darkest times there are other people out there that understand.
Hmm.
Pure OCD is OCD. It's obsessive compulsive disorder. It just manifests with intrusive thoughts. And intrusive meaning unwanted
Yeah.
thoughts that you feel, thoughts that make you pause and sometimes make you horrified.
Hmm.
But a lot of times they are just thoughts of like, oh, why did I think that? And that momentary lapse is what fires the compulsions and
Yep.
starts the cycle. And a lot of times you can't stop that. And so so the compulsions then are mental. And rumination, despite what many people say, therapists in general, which I do not appreciate, when they say that the compulsions aren't automatic, because that's very shameful for us. I have been ruminating since before I can remember. If you tell me that my rumination is not automatic, you're telling me that I'm a shithead that doesn't know how to make myself better.
Yep.
Like rumination is automatic, mental review is automatic, avoidance can be automatic.
Yeah.
And so you're already in compulsions half the time before you even realize it's OCD.
I had opposite action be automatic. I'm working through that right now, like doing the opposite, physical of a physical compulsion, doing the opposite of what OCD doesn't want me to do.
Mm.
But then I started doing it just automatically, and then I'm
Hmm.
like, what's I lost? Then I'm like, oh, I lost control. I'm done. Like,
Right. It sets you up as being a failure.
yes, it
Hmm.
sure does. But
Yes.
yeah, so that's why when I started seeing stuff about Puro and people like sharing, I had that moment of because I had never met someone that had like the sexual intrusive thoughts that I had until I went to treatment last year and like met somebody in person. I'd read about it online, obviously, and seen people talk about it. Um, but I was also careful, and I hated searching stuff. I was like, "Oh, it's gonna show up,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they're
It's
gonna come
scary.
they're gonna come lock me up." And yeah, I remember the first day being in residential treatment. I was like, I was somebody was like, so basically it's like I don't want to compare it to prison because it wasn't like prison, but it's like, why are you here? You know, people want to know like, hey, what's your thing? Because there's all different avenues and different OCD ticks that everyone has and different subtypes, all that good stuff. And I was like, well, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, this is, I mean, I have fears of harming children, of harming other people, of yeah, all kinds of just the worst things you can think of.
Hmm.
And I remember somebody saying, "Oh, I have that too," and I was like, "Oh."
Oh, we're everywhere.
Yeah, I know. And I was like, finally. And we
Yeah.
like became, unfortunately, she was like, only had a couple weeks left. So I didn't get a chance to really get to know her as much as I wanted to. But I do have her number and need to reach out to her because she helped me a lot because the first day I felt like I was in the right place. I finally felt, and I've been struggling. I'm 30, I was 34 when I went in and I'm 30, I just turned 35. But I was diagnosed with OCD at 13 or 14, right around that age when things got real weird in general. And it was different then. And then it kind of morphed in my 20s into the darker stuff, into the me thinking I'm a monster. And that's the first time that uh, I did not attempt suicide because I don't know, I there was still something there that was I have an uncle who committed suicide, so that comes to mind, and I remember how that affected my mom because they were very close, and I didn't want to cause that to happen to her,
Hmm.
um, and I said, "Hey, look, I don't know what to do. I don't want to be here anymore." But and I was living at home at the time, and I was like, "Take." they're like, you want to go to the hospital? I'm like, yeah, because I don't know what to do. And then that was the first time I ever admitted that I had these thoughts because I was afraid to tell
Oh
anyone.
yeah.
Um, because that wasn't how my OCD started. So I was like, what's going on? Am I like a pedophile? Am I a monster? Am I, attracted to my mom or whatever?
Mhm.
All this crazy stuff. And I shouldn't say crazy, but it was wild. It was just unheard of
Very
stuff that I,
crazy.
yeah, I guess you could use it. But I finally said it out loud to the nurse. I was like, hey, you know, can't stop thinking about harming. And it was a specific person at the time.
That's
And
awkward.
that's how it started, was a specific person. And it was obviously somebody I cared about, his family. And they were like, well, since you told us, we have to tell your parents.
God.
And I was like, uh, no, please don't. My parents are very understanding people. I'm very lucky there. So they got it, but they had to tell them because they're like, in case you do harm some, do actually go
God.
through with it, even though that was
Oh,
the last thing I wanted to do. It's because I
yeah.
brought it up. They had to mandatory report it to somebody, and I was like, but luckily the nurse that was in there was like, hey, everybody has thoughts like that. The thing is with us, we have a thought like that, it doesn't just go away. We're like, that needs attention. That's messed up. Let's pick that apart. And if there's any shred of doubt, we're gonna latch onto it. If I doubt my identity in any way, or my intentions, or what I believe in or what I'm attracted to, I'll just go down this rabbit hole, and that's what happened. And I also, it's funny you mentioned alcohol. Yeah, it wasn't just alcohol for me. It was a lot of things. But
And this is something that doesn't get talked about enough
no,
in the community is that what
stuff.
people do to escape.
Oh
And
yeah, escaping was my favorite thing to do. I can still catch myself trying to do it, and I've been sober for almost 8 years. And I was self-medicating. I was just like, clearly, I didn't realize that at the time. I just thought, hey, I'm in my 20s, I'm having a good time, whatever. This is what I'm supposed to do. Um, Alcohol is way too, it's getting different, but people are more sober curious now. But alcohol is such a societal thing that gets pushed so heavily. Like you need to drink to have a good time, or socialize. And I believed all that, and I'm also Catholic, so drinking is like a huge thing. So my parents are not addicts or alcoholics. They're what we call in the program normies. And so they didn't really know what was going on. And so I kind of had this whole thing with, dealing with the OCD and dealing with the addiction.
mhm.
And it was just molded into one thing. And then 7 years into my sobriety, my OCD decides to come back at a vulnerable time. And happened, I was in a relationship. That relationship went south, and she accused me of being a monster, um, based off of a sexual joke that I made, because I
Oh,
like I like to joke around. I'm a stand-up comic too. So it was stupid. And she had her own things going on. She had issues in the past with, she's a very attractive girl. She thought all like guys just wanted to use her for sex. And we took things very slow in the relationship. And, that was like the first thing I really said that was like even really remotely sexual because I didn't want to trigger something. And I did. I triggered something and it blew up and I got blocked. I haven't spoken to her since.
Mm.
Um, and it really messed me up. And that's when everything just went downhill. And then I ended up in residential treatment. And
Yeah.
luckily, I'm doing better now and getting the treatment that I need. And finally found a therapist that understands me and is the first time in the first session that we had, she cussed and apologized. And I was like, don't apologize for cussing. You don't have to. Just be you. Don't put on this facade. I don't need all that. Just give me straight up, what do I need to do? Um, Ask me whatever you want so we can get down to this and figure this out and figure out a plan. Because it you have to do the work with OCD. You have to put in the effort to try to get better. Otherwise, if you're not putting in the effort to try to get better consistently, you're going to backtrack. And that's what happened to me last year because I wasn't putting in the work.
Hmm.
I was slacking on my therapy. I was slacking. I need to go to therapy probably for the rest of my life. Uh, that's or doing ERP. Maybe not, twice a week, but at least for that accountability. I have to have that accountability. Otherwise, I am going to go down a very dark path. But community is important. I've stayed in touch and with people that I was in treatment with, become really good friends with some of them, and we, we check in on each other, and it's really cool. Because I didn't have any of that before I went to residential treatment. There was just stuff online with like I remember when OCD was just like a like a Reddit for OCD people. Um, and now it's grown into Howie Mandel being a part of it.
Yeah.
Um, it's crazy. But I don't know how I got to this part in the story, by the way. But I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I'll do that from time to time because I'm very passionate about talking about OCD, as you can tell. Because especially the taboo stuff, and that's the main message I say is that I want to talk about the taboo stuff because it doesn't get talked about enough. I'm afraid to talk about it a lot of the times, but I push myself because I know somebody out there's gonna be like, okay, that is me, or that I can relate to that, and I'm not alone. Because I was feeling alone just like you were for quite some time. And like, okay, I mean, I don't want to tell anyone about this. And each person I told, it got easier. And yeah, this is the second podcast I think I've ever mentioned that on. So, and I was like, I'm probably gonna say it because I'm talking with somebody who understands it, and yeah, it's scary, but it attacks your values. That's the problem. Like I value, um, you know, I value women. I want to be a gentleman. I value children. I want to be, the fun. Like I'm an uncle now. I want to be a fun uncle. Like I'm a child at heart. I'm very immature. But I like to have fun, and it attacks that. And yeah, I've had relationship OCD. That was happening with that relationship before it unfolded, and then it was like, oh, and then it was just a huge blow. Like, um, but yeah, this OCD is no joke. Like people, it's talked about so lightly, and
Mhm.
it pisses us off. Um, People are like, yeah, if I tell people I'm OCD, I don't even like telling people I'm OCD because they're just like, oh yeah, I do a little this and that. I'm like, I've been
Hmm.
telling people that it's a spectrum just to get them to like, I don't know, find some camaraderie in it, I guess, instead of arguing with them and trying to tell them that they're wrong. Um, because who am I to diagnose people? So, um, but at the same time, it's just like, come on, like if you only knew this.
Well, I mean, it's not really people's fault. It's
No,
the
it's
perception
not.
that's
It's
peddled,
the way it's
yeah, in
portrayed
society.
in the media everywhere.
Mhm. I don't really get mad about it anymore. I think I did like the first 5 or 6 years.
Yeah,
And then now I just anticipate that people are going to say it.
yeah,
And I just say, "Oh, you really do you really have it?" And then they're like, "Oh, well, and I was like, and then I always just say, "Do you enjoy doing the compulsions?" And
yeah,
they'll say, "Oh yeah." And then I'll be like, "Oh, okay, so you're just really obsessive." I was like, "Cuz when you cross over to the disorder, you don't enjoy it anymore." And they're like, "Oh, okay." Usually that's an easier way. Um,
I say, do you like if somebody says I like to organize things? I'm like, do you think about if you don't organize them that your whole family's gonna die? And they're like, what? And I'm like,
yeah.
yeah, you don't have OCD. Probably don't have OCD.
Yeah. I mean, I usually just look at it now as, and I didn't before. I used to get mad about it, but I look at it now as just an opportunity to educate people,
Yeah,
uh, if they're willing to hear it.
absolutely.
And then
Yeah,
sometimes I'm just like, I'm just not interested. They can just keep thinking that. I mean,
yeah.
unfortunately, it's just like it's systemic now. I mean, there's no way we're ever going to educate the public about that OCD isn't quirky. It's too ingrained that it is and that everybody has some of it. And so
Mhm.
once I kind of radically accepted that, it was just
Good old radical acceptance.
like whatever. It's they're not my people anyway.
Yep, I get what you're saying. But there has been more progress. I've seen more people, obviously advocates such as yourself, sharing their story
Mhm.
and people hearing it and being able to relate to it and also just understand it. Um, my dad's been trying to understand it. He's been doing his research. He wants to understand me better because he really cares about me. And he picked up the book. Have you ever heard of the book Brain Lock?
That was the first book I ever read
Yeah,
on it. Yeah.
it's still pretty solid. Like I did it. I listened to it audio because I'm not a big reader, like I told you earlier. Um, and I'm like, man, for this being 20 years old, I think it's 20 years old, or maybe even older than that.
There's
Th-
good stories in there of
this
the
still
different
holds
types.
up. Yeah,
Yeah. The strategies aren't so great. The stop sign.
yeah.
I remember that.
The labeling though, I do like.
Yeah.
Um, like oh yeah, that's okay. We're like that's OCD creeping in. How are we gonna approach this? That I like, and he really got into that book. He's a big reader, so
Mhm.
uh, I don't know if he could handle reading your book. No offense, just I don't know
No,
if
it's raw. It's very
it's
raw and
raw,
very vulnerable.
very raw and very vulnerable, which I love.
It's more geared toward people with OCD.
Yeah, it's more
Sure.
geared to people with OCD. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if I ever get into reading mode the way I want to, I will read it. Unless
Yeah, it's pretty good.
um, but yeah, I know you have to get going here
I
shortly.
do. But thank you for having me on. I hope it was helpful.
Yeah, it was definitely helpful. It's always good to talk to someone that I don't have to put a filter on or anything like that. Um, and that, is out here really advocating. And I really appreciate what you do. Like I said, I sent you that message like a year ago, well, last year, and I was like, I saw your video, like really helped me because
Yeah.
I thought I was a monster. I thought I was this horrible person because of just thoughts and my body and
I know. I know.
you're like I can't I should because my thing is like if I don't have control over something then it's a problem and I that's where I start to freak out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's common. I definitely like to touch on the things that nobody talks about. I just did a podcast with Stu on the OCD stories on this very issue of if people are going to advocate, they've got to start talking about the taboo themes. You can't
Yep,
advocate for OCD and just do it because you don't want to lose followers. Like, you've got to represent the whole community.
I'm over that. I'm over the
Oh,
like
yeah,
yeah, like would I like to be able to be an influencer and not have to work a regular job? Yes. But I want to be authentically me doing that.
exactly. Yeah. But
So,
but thank you for having me on. I do have to go. I have group
yeah,
in a minute.
yep, no problem. I have to connect with you on the group thing because I would like to join sometime and see what that's all about.
Absolutely. Oh, my
Yeah,
groups are so phenomenal.
yeah,
Yeah. But thank you so much. And I'm so happy that you're doing this podcast and talking more about the things that people really need to hear.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Hopefully we can talk again soon.
absolutely.
Enjoy your group and
Thanks.
take care.
Okay.
All
Bye,
right,
Colin. Thank
all right.
you.
Bye, Chris.